Hello.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, we are welcome you into the IT Home Conference, which is going to be the second time, and hope to meet you soon and next year. Unfortunately, let me introduce an amazing guy who will share with you the secret of the Kubernetes certification and maybe share some more. What Georgi, Georgi Kiratishvili. And before to provide microphone for you, please not hesitate to type any kind of question via our chat. Please kindly look into our desktop by the side. There's written chat button or Q&A session. And at the end of our presentation, we will provide all kind of question to our speaker, and it will be choosing one winner. Yes, who is? Maybe you are. So thank you, George, and please welcome to IT Home Conference.
So
We
first
are
of all,
waiting.
I want to thank you, everybody, to attending this conference. Also, it's really glad that I have an opportunity to give this speech, and I will try to give my best explanation of the certification and present as I can. So, all right, let's start. First of all, I would like to introduce the title of my presentation. It will be regarding the Kubernetes certification, specifically regarding CKA and CKAD specification. So, first of all, I would like to also introduce myself. Who am I and why I have the knowledge and like what extensive knowledge may I have that maybe some others do not. I have passed this examination, CKA and CKAD, and I'm also senior system engineer at EPAM. Also, I'm Google Developers Student Club lead, and I mainly how to say, propagate the knowledge of Kubernetes in the student communities and try to make impact in community regarding Kubernetes. So let's start our presentation. First of all, I would like to introduce the agenda, what we are going to speak today, and what we will not. So, first of all, I would like to introduce the organization behind of this certification, who they are. Mainly, this is Linux Foundation and CNCF. I would like to briefly tell about their story, who they are, and why they are regarded as the most successful open source foundation behind the majority of companies or the majority of projects which we may know. Also, I would like to speak about their goals and their motive for creating the certifications. Also, I would like to introduce some basic information regarding Kubernetes, what it tries to solve, what impact does it have on the market currently, and why it is becoming so popular among many companies and in cloud offerings. Also, we see many managed solutions by Kubernetes. Also, the main point of this presentation, of course, it will be speaking about the certification. I'll try to give explanation of the existing certifications which exist and for what kind of person are they suited for. Also, I will give the comparison between each of them and try to give more explanation about what benefits can it give to the person and for what kind of person it is suited best for. Also, I'll try to give my personal tips, what I have experienced during exam, what I have observed, and what feeling I have after that. And after that, we can have a Q&A session. So, all right, let's continue. So first of all, I would like to introduce the Linux Foundation. As you may know, as the name implies, this is the organization behind the Linux kernel. This is one of the biggest open source project, and Linux Foundation is that organization which manage all the activities around the Linux and its ecosystem. Many people may not know that many of its products are under its umbrella, but also, it's managed many other foundations like CNCF, Cloud Native Computing Foundation. So by this Linux Foundation is the core player of open source technologies, and it is the main drive force in our daily tools which we use for using. So yeah, it's very important to understand that this company is established more than 15 years and has been operating on the large scale, and the majority of open source tools are under its umbrella. After that, I would like to introduce the main company, which is behind the main foundation, which is behind the Kubernetes, the Cloud Native Computing Foundation. It is a very crucial foundation and community which drives our modern world of cloud native infrastructure and tools. We may know many its products like Kubernetes, Prometheus, Fluentd. Also, they is responsible for its CD and many projects we are using on our daily basis. For like every crucial system which we are running may have some kind of connection with a cloud native tool stack. And like this is very important to know that it is backed by Linux Foundation, CNCF. And like when the project is started by CNCF, it means that this project will be managed by professional organization, which has previously done a lot of many open source products, and they know what is important to drive this project. And I would like to mention how Kubernetes got in cloud native computing. As many know, Kubernetes was donated to the cloud native computing. It was donated by Google, and Google has extensive experience managing container solution. In 2000s, they already started managing many solutions which were important for their development stack. And based on that, they developed their own tool. It was called Borg, and they are operating containers and microservices, I don't know, like some 2000 years, from 2000 years, and they have extensive experience regarding that. When in 2010s, when containers application appears more available to community, the Docker has emerged, and many solutions related to containerized application start becoming popular. Google saw a very big potential for donating its product Borg to the community, and they did it by donating it to the Linux Foundation. Based on that, Linux Foundation decided to create a whole new foundation which is related to the cloud native, and they see that the trend which was developing at the time, that cloud native applications and cloud environment is becoming the main driving force for our modern IT, and how applications and our daily tools are used. So based on that, in 2015, Google donated to Cloud Native, and it was the first project which was introduced in the CNCF. After that, there was a very emerging trend that how to manage containers application. It was very new to new people, and many solutions were not very how to say, more proficient to managing containers in large scale. So during this time, many other solutions has emerged, such as Docker Swarm, and Heroku has its own solution. But after, like, how to say, great war of orchestrators, the clear winner was Kubernetes. And since like 2018, 2019, it was already clear that it was becoming the de facto standards, and many cloud companies has embraced it. So as we see, this is the landscape of cloud native. This is all projects which are under its umbrella and which is managing to work with. Many of them are have maybe some kind of indirect correlation, but yeah, when I saw this landscape at first, I was very overwhelmed, as like I was thought that maybe I need to learn or anything this, and I was really lost in it. So yeah, this is how I felt. Okay, let's now jump to the Kubernetes. The orchestrator, which is becoming the de facto standard in our communities. Yeah. So why Kubernetes is becoming so important in our everyday IT? We should understand it is as the companies which are developing software and the trend in general in IT is becoming to be more agile and like to release more frequently. And this is exactly which Kubernetes tries to solve and aims to help in our everyday work. So the main components of Kubernetes and benefits is that it makes the deployments of our application very easy, scalable, and more easily to manage in high scale, in high loads. But before I jump more detailed about that, I would like to share the presentation how it describes the market share of Kubernetes, how it shares, and how the whole ecosystem and application containers market looks like. It's projected that in 2025 we would see that the major adoption of, among containerized application would have Kubernetes, and it will reach somewhere about $8 billion mark. And it is very huge, where the previous, it was only like some major jumps, but since 2017 we see the exponential growth, and we can project that the Kubernetes will become the most used technologies in open source tool, and it will help our system administrators and DevOps persons very much in like the majority of critical applications would run on Kubernetes and containerized applications. So as this trend has seen the all major public cloud vendors, they see that there is a great market for Kubernetes, and they decided to roll their own services. And based on that, they are developing and helping Kubernetes to explode and became this de facto standard for managing application for containerized applications. By this, many known cloud vendors such as GCP, AWS, and Azure are providing their own services, which is based on vanilla Kubernetes, and some their own proprietary services also. So now let's jump to the Kubernetes examination. I will touch only CKA, CKAD, but unfortunately, I do not have much information regarding CKAs, but I'll try to give my explanation how I see this exam and for whom it is suited for well. So let's identify for which certification is suited for what kind of person. It is important to understand what role does the person plays and interacts with Kubernetes. Let's start with CKAD. This means Certified Kubernetes Application Developer. And on this level, a person should feel very comfortable with containers, how to build, how to make images, how to build from them, and how compose this application into containers application. And based on that, person can explore the Kubernetes core resources, such as what is pod, what is services, what is ingress, and they just know how to make the deployments inside of Kubernetes manifest. And this exam is built around that. It is also important to understand what kind of role they want to proceed. Also, I would like to highlight that the core questions regarding this CKAD exam is built around Kubernetes core resources, such as what is pod, what is replica set, what is ingress, and network policies. Also, there was some changes which are coming to that examination, CKAD, specifically that since 28th of September, there will be some changes in syllabus of that examination, and there will be some new domains which will be added to this exam. They are more related to how cloud native and Kubernetes ecosystem is evolving, and based on that, they decided to add these components. Mainly, there are 6 components. One of them is before that there was no requirements how to build container images. Like maybe there will be question regarding how to build some simple application in a Docker file and make it containerized. Second would be to use some Kubernetes primitives to implement command deployment strategies, such as blue-green deployments and canary deployments. Also, there will be introduction of a Helm package manager, which is becoming the more and more standard how we deploy our applications. It is not only like we create containers and that's it. No, currently the trend is that it is more needs to be more managed application and more how to say more efficient manner to deploy our applications. Like creating all of the deployments is not enough, so they decided to introduce Helm, which is part of CNCF incubator projects. After that, they also decided to introduce, well, I would not say they introduced, but they highlighted that they may use the Kubernetes, some deprecated Kubernetes API services, which a person should understand how to look for these deprecated services and how to identify which is which is problematic and which needs to be replaced. After that, they also introduced the CRD, custom resource definitions. This means that there will be some installed tools which are in Kubernetes environment, in Kubernetes ecosystem, and by this they want to understand if person is able to identify what is added to Kubernetes and what benefits, what tools and stacks he can use during this exam. Maybe some of them could be useful, some may not, but it depends what question will come during the exam. Also, the sixth, the very important addition to this exam is that there was introduction of how authentication and authorization is done inside of Kubernetes. This means role-based access, and this is very important that because before there was very light mention of this components, this domain, and it was more used in CKA exam, not CKAD. So it means that this exam is becoming more and more difficult to pass, and like it is not like only some core components should be needed to know. Also, they will be very useful if person would know some more besides of syllabus. So yeah, now let's discuss the following certifications. This is CKA and CKS, and we'll try to identify which is suited for person and what roles it is suited more. So during CKA, there is, so yeah, I also forgot to mention that during CKA and CKAD, there is no pre-requirement person to pass it. Like anyone with no experience, when I started preparing for a CKA, CKAD, I don't have any extensive knowledge or experience with Kubernetes, and they do not require anything during the exam. So any person can start learning, and during this learning journey, they can see if they are suited for this examination and if they have experience and knowledge to pass it. So yeah, CK and CKD do not have a prerequisite. Now let's discuss CKA exam, what kind of person it is suited for and what is requirements for it. So the person who would decide to join the CKA exam would need to understand the role of a Kubernetes administrator person, as it is more built around it, and the person who is maintaining the Kubernetes cluster. The main resources is that he should be able to understand the core components, how Kubernetes is built. Everything which is inside of CKAD is included in CKA, and also there is some administrative questions like how can we take etcd snapshots, maybe how our underlying works nodes and workers are working. Maybe there will be questions like what if our system services are down, and how we can identify which is down and how we can make them work. This is very important to understand also how Linux works. As during the exam, we are not given any kind of choose options to choose from, like we want to run it in on Windows or Linux. Only option is available is in a Linux environment, and it is done only in CLI environment. There is no GUI. So when we are trying to edit something or edit deployments or create deployments, everything is done in CLI, and we are forced to use some CLI editors such as Beam, VI, or Nano. Also, the environment which is running during this exam is based on Ubuntu, as I said, but it is Ubuntu, which is LTS at that moment. So there could be some changes between what environments you use and your lab environment and what is in the exam. It is important to understand. Also, there was previously option to choose CentOS-based examination, but it was deprecated as when the new version of Kubernetes are rolling out, they are always tested on Ubuntu, and the recommended OS for Kubernetes, let's say, is Ubuntu, and it is the most tested well. So yeah, this is CKA. Now let's discuss the CKS. The CKS stands for Certified Kubernetes Security Specialist. This is oriented for the person who is more working on security aspect of Kubernetes. During this examination, person is asked to use yeah. Also, I forgot to mention that during CKS, person is there is a prerequisite to this exam. If person has not passed CKA exam, he's not allowed to take CKS exam, and it is important as like all of the questions which are in CKS, they already thinks that the person knows of the basic of Kubernetes and understand them very well, and they more take a more direction to the security tools which are in this examination, such as Falco, how we can protect our container runtime, how can we isolate, such as using GVs or maybe some network policies, how we can implement role-based accesses, how we can restrict the authentication method to our Kubernetes cluster, and many more regarding the Kubernetes. During these exams, all of them are all of them are during 2 hours period, and during this period, this exam person should do everything in CLI. Now, there is no option like how to say option to choose like circle options. Like there is no check marks to each questions. No, everything is done in we are Kubernetes manifest, and we should, and the question which is asking us, we should validate by ourselves. And by this I mean that the object which created is checked by human or machine via unit tests. And it's important to understand how to interact with the Kubernetes manifests and resources and how I edit them, as it is important, because some questions may ask us to give the output of our manifest and put them in certain directory where it will be examined after we will finish. So yeah, this is regarding basics of examination. Now, it is very important, and I cannot emphasize enough that the practice for this examination is very important, as it is wholly based on a practice exam. There is no options to multiple option choice, and it's important to understand how to interact with Kubernetes via CLI, as every person would do it. This is the reason why I really like the examination of Linux Foundation, as they tried to push this trend of doing everything via CLI and don't have any multiple choice tests, as this demonstrates the person that really knows how to do the work by hands-on. And this is not like somebody just guessed some questions. It is not acceptable, I think, in modern IT, and it is more practical and hands-on examination. And the majority of Linux Foundation is based on that principles. So yeah, as I said, as this exam is practice-based, it is important to develop our skills and working around the Kubernetes a lot. And I remember when I started to preparing for exam, I felt very nervous and anxious that I do not understand many basic things. But after failing many times, I managed to understand the core components and how the internal components work by practicing. I broke many times my clusters. I broke many services inside of it, and by this we are able to explore its core components, how it is architected, and it is, how to say, for me it's very efficient to know the component or subject or technology which I'm working. We are hands-on on that, and this is what this examinations emphasize. Also, when I started to work to create my lab environments, I didn't know how to start, so I decided to make some points which I have explored and what benefits and what pros and cons I have seen in them. So let's first start using VMs. There is nothing new to this approach, but bootstrapping Kubernetes via VMs is like, how to say, more like old school. Modern solutions which cloud vendors provide us are not based between VMs. They create by themselves, but it is managed centrally. And during this time, we are forced to use kubeadm service. This is tool which helps us to bootstrap our Kubernetes cluster, and it is very easy to create our cluster with the VMs. Before that, people used to make all this bootstrapping by the hand. I mean, creating the certificate which will all workers and masters will communicate with each other, creating the join links and making the ensure that networking stack works very well was very tedious procedure. And I remember before I went to the examination, like 3 years ago, I tried to bootstrap a cluster by myself, and I was lost. Like it was very hard. And from nowadays, it is much easier. Like I would say like 100 times much easier to create our Kubernetes cluster in our local environment and practice on it. This is regarding the VMs. I would say the minimum requirements would be 2 or 3 VMs. I would say somewhere about 1 core and 2 GB RAMs for each node, and one node could be master, and the rest of them could be workers. Also, there is some other options which are becoming more popular for Kubernetes development on local. These tools are called Minikube and Kind. There is a difference between them. I would say that Minikube is more popular among the people who is using Kubernetes for their job. Minikube use many approaches. Among them is using VMs, such as hypervisors. They can use a VMware Workstation, VirtualBox, or Mac Fusion. There's many options for that. Also, Minikube is able to use the Docker, the containerized version of Kubernetes. By this, multiple containers are spin up in a host, and they are bootstrapping themselves. Everything is done automatically, and we are just getting the kubectl in our local directory, and everything is automatically working by using minikubes. Regarding the kind, personally, I most of the time I use kind as like it is a solution that use only containers images. They are not supporting VMs options, but if the environment which we want to run, maybe we want to run multiple multiple version of Kubernetes and more specific ones. In Kind, it is also possible, but I found Kind gives me more more room to work on so many different versions of Kubernetes, and it is more easy to develop on it. Besides that options, we also have opportunity to work on the cloud environment. As I mentioned, cloud vendors see a big potential in Kubernetes, and they try to offer managed solutions in their cloud environments. And many of them provide some free clusters, which can, like every provider has free tiers, which they can use in AWS. It could be some T2 micro environments. For GCP, they even give person $300 credit when they first sign up, and during this year when they are giving these free credits, they can spend it on anything. It includes GKA environments. This stands for Google Kubernetes engine, where we are given the managed solution on which we can develop our application or play around. But I would say there is one problem with these managed solutions, and it is that these solutions, in these solutions in Kubernetes, masters are behind the cloud provider, and we don't have much option to think around it and play with master nodes. And I think it is very important to have understanding how they work, how edit these master nodes, and how to apply or change our desired changes. Also, I would like to highlight one of the very good place where the person can play the around this concepts of cloud native. Also, it's called cloud Kataconda, and on this side, people are given opportunities to work on some demos and tutorials from vendors itself. For example, there was, as I remember, tutorials for how to deploy Prometheus inside of Kubernetes. And during these tutorials, we were given Kubernetes environment where we can test some our deployments, our Prometheus deployments. And in this environment, when we're giving Kubernetes, we're also giving some questions and tasks, what we can do from vendors, what they think that person could benefit from it by doing themselves, and testing out on it. It is becoming very popular. Recently, O'Reilly has bought them, and they are becoming part of their assets, and many of their tutorials are moving to the Katacoda, and many demos which are taking place during some Kubernetes events are taking place on that events on the Katacoda site. So yeah, this is mainly the lab environment, so which I know and I can recommend it, guys. Also, yeah. So yeah, during this time, when so yeah, also I would like to emphasize one thing, how it's important. Okay, sorry, my presentation went crazy. So yeah, it's important to understand that during this examination, we are giving opportunity to use documentation. During this exam, we are allowed to use two tabs. This is one is for exam itself. It is based, so yeah, exam is based itself on web, and it is proctored, and currently there is no option to go to some testing center and pass it by yourself. Person should take it from his home or any environments remotely, and they are required to use a webcam and have installed the PSI examination centers plugin on their environments. And during this exam, we are allowed to use two tabs only. And we can use multiple monitors also. And these two tabs, we are allowed to use only this examination web console and the documentation of Kubernetes. During and on this documentation page, we are not allowed to move besides of documentation. So they are saying in handbook of this examination, they are stating that the person is allowed to use any sites which is under Kubernetes.io. This includes also some forums, also some kind of community pages. But when I asked the proctor regarding this subdomains, and they told me that it is prohibited and person should only use documentation. If the proctor saw that we are using this subdomains, they will give us warning, and if they give us more than 3 times warning, they will close the exam, and it will conduct it that we failed this exam. So now regarding the tips and tricks about this examination, it is important to understand that during this examination, we are given many options to demonstrate our works. In Linux Foundation also provides the studying materials for this examination, but I would say they are very raw, and I would not recommend them as they do not provide many tests and practice where people can learn. But recently, Linux Foundation and CNCF has partnered with one of the great simulator for Kubernetes certification. It includes, it's called Killer SH, and this company I highly recommend. As like when I was preparing for my examinations, I used them very extensively. They helped me very much to understand the format of the question, and when I am taking the simulator, I'm giving the real world environment. The Kubernetes cluster is spin up in their cloud environments. I think it is GCP, and in this cloud environment, I'm given multiple clusters. And also the web UI, which is used for the simulator, is very close to the real one, which is on the exam. Also, I would like to mention that when we are buying this exam, the CNCF also includes one retake. So what does it mean? Maybe we will fail at our first attempt, and during 1 year period, we are allowed to take it anytime. And this is what I like very much about Linux Foundation and their examinations, that they do this for all of them certification. Like maybe it could be Linux certification, LFC, or maybe there are some Node.js certification. And this by this they try to emphasize that people to try more and explore these new opportunities and these new technologies. Many other providers do not do this, and this is why I really like them. Besides of that, they also provide the practice environment for our examination. So yeah, since I think it was August, they partnered with Killer SH, and whenever a person buys the Kubernetes certification, it includes CKA, CKAD, and CKS. They are also provided with this Killer SH simulator. During this Killer SH simulator bundle, a person is given two practice tests, and these practice tests are and like when we start one practice test, we're giving a special as I said, Kubernetes cloud environments with multiple clusters, and this cluster is accessible during 36 hours. It is important to understand it, and the simulator also provides good explanation how these questions are structured, what was if we answered them incorrectly. They also provide the feedback what was the right answer, and most importantly, they are much harder than what is on an exam. I remember like I almost failed the simulator, but on the when I went to the like CKAD, I scored like 90% of scores. So yeah, it's very hard in the simulator, but it's very great to have such experience and understand the questions. Like this is the questions which are inside of Killer SH will come into the exam, but there will be some in different context. But the idea, what is needed to test, and what steps do we need to follow is the same. So I would highly recommend to do this simulator. So yeah, this is regarding simulator. Yeah, now let's jump to the console. So now imagine we start our exam. We're given this kind of environments. This screenshot which I'm showing is directly from exam. Linux Foundation provides the small tutorial on YouTube how they present what they are giving during exam the students which are taking this exam. And as we see, this is the environments which we will work. As you see, we are giving a couple of questions. There is part called task 1 of 1. In each there will be somewhere about from 16 to 20 questions in each examination. And during this environments, we are giving this similar environment in CK killer stage simulator. They are somewhere spin up somewhere in the cloud, and we are given multiple clusters. As I remember, in CKA, we are given somewhere about 6 to 8 clusters. And it is important to understand on which question we need to switch to which cluster. As you see on the screen, the kubeconfig use different context, and in the beginning of each questions, we are given the cluster which we want to jump, and by just copying this button, pressing by this button, it's automatically copied to our web UI, and we are giving also web terminal. In this web terminal, many things do not work the same as usual on the terminal, as it is web-based. It is important not to use Control W as it may close the window. Also, the copying and pasting of the question works very different. Now they have improved it, but when I was passing the exam, copy and paste was not working. We are Control C and Control V. By this, I had to use Control Shift and C and Control V, but also now they changed this and managed to make it more friendly as we use copy and paste on our everyday basis. Now Control C and Control V works, but also there is option to paste via a right click of the mouse. Also, we are giving on the screen the sample question for CKS exam. As you see, this is the format which they try to follow. They are highlighting some of the key questions which we should pay attention. Also, during exam, each question has its weight. And what does it mean? Some questions may have 12% of total for total exam, and by this they're giving us understanding on which question should we spend time, or for what, and how long should we spend time on it. It is very important to understand the time managements, and as like I remember when I was doing exam, the time just fly by, and like I was doing the half, and the majority time was almost spent, and I almost went to the panic. And it's one point. It is important to track the time, but I also add one thing during this screenshot. It is not clear, but this bar, which is above the jaw blocks below, which is in gray, it's when we start the exam, it gets green, and this is our time indicator. There is no number indicators. It is only so they are lowering the bar, and by this they indicate how much time is passed and how much we are left with. So I would recommend that during this time, when we will start the exam, it's important to glance on every question to understand which we should glance each of the question very well. It is important to understand which question may cost some more time to spend, and to identify which needs priorities. I would highly recommend to just start from the highest points, and after that try to move to the lowest points. So do not spend much time on more than 4 minutes on each question, as we can jump from one question to another, and during these jumps we can also flag the questions. By this we are allowed to make also notes which may be useful for our previous question from next question, and it's give us more room to leverage. Maybe we don't know that question at the right. So yeah, after all these answers are submitted, we also must double check our questions and ensure that they are correct, and to ensure that we do not have any kind of typo, as these questions are exempt, and they are checked by humans and the machines, and they are checked more like unit test style. So typos are very important to avoid. So double check also always your answers. So yeah, after 38 hours, you will receive of the examination, you will receive email notification if you will pass this exam. And if you pass, you will receive the digital badge. This means that you will receive also the Credly badge. Also, you will receive certification from Linux Foundation also. And also, I would like to emphasize the importance of KubeCons, Kube events, KubeCon. This means that every twice a year they are held during different countries, and during this time many people are gathered together to share their experience. Cloud Native provides this on their YouTube channels. Every speech which is presented in a KubeCon is later uploaded on their YouTube channel, and I will highly recommend to visit their channel CNCF and just explore their catalog, as it is very huge. And I always, when some new KubeCon things events has came out, I always register and I always attend their conferences. The community around the Kubernetes is the most healthy and very exciting community I have ever seen, because many people are excited about this technology and everybody wants to share their experience, skills, and their knowledge. So yeah, I would highly recommend to join KubeCon events. Also, there are many Slack communities. I would leave in my presentation links, and you can join of these communities also. So yeah, thank you very much, guys. This is end of my presentation. I thought I could give the best explanation I could give for this exam. And if you have any questions, let's please start.
Yeah, thanks a lot. And really, we have some questions to you, and I'm sure it will be much more lately after the video record. So there's a question belong to Ladislav. How much time can the preparation process for the certification take if you are not an expert in Kubernetes?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, when I started preparing for this exam, I was my company was at the time my company was trying to introduce Kubernetes, and I was given opportunities to learn and do demos on the live when I was learning for Kubernetes. And I would say it depends on the person how much you spend. I would say I was spending too much time because like I was not fast learner, but I would manage to pass CKA and CKAD during a 3 months period. If person is ready for CKA, he will easily pass CKAD exam. So I would say during the week, person should spend somewhere about 4 to 5 hours. I will highly recommend to spend time on practice, and during like, let's say 2 or 3 months, he would be good. Yeah.
It sounds really good and impressive. Thanks a lot. And other one question: has it necessary to know something in Docker to make the preparation process easier?
So yeah, I would say as a recent changes for CKAD, the knowledge of Docker and containerized application is needed, as like they are more requesting to understand how to build Docker files. So when I was passing, there was no hardcore restriction if I should know how to build Docker and Docker files. But now it's changing, and I would say now it's becoming important.
Yeah, thanks a lot. And one more question. What perks have the certification given you in your profession?
Oh
In
yeah,
project staffing, and if it's of course not secret, yeah. Can
yeah,
you please share?
Yeah, sure. So the benefit which is given me is like the experience which I got from this examination and certification. It was like journey, and this certification gave me the goal, which I'll try to achieve. Like when I started to preparing for it, I needed to learn Kubernetes, but I do not have some clear goal at what level should I learn and what should I learn. By this, I had the opportunity to follow the syllabus which is given for the certification, and this syllabus was created by the the best people who are working around Kubernetes. As you see on this photo of the presentation, it's a Kelsey Hightower. He's the go-to guy for Kubernetes, and he was one of the key person who was building the syllabus. And by this, I was able to get more familiar with Kubernetes and know the tools and methods which I should use in my daily work. And by this, when there were some guys who were learning Kubernetes by themselves, other my teammates, and our knowledge was very different. They used Google for their research. I was using the Kubernetes documentation. That depends also on the person, but this exam tries to give you the ways how you should learn and the fundamentals and the methodologies which person should know how to work with Kubernetes. And it gave me a very good understanding how fundamentals and logic is behind of Kubernetes. And regarding my personal career benefits, it's very benefit very much as like I really like Kubernetes community, and I was fortunate to have a opportunity to work on Kubernetes. And yeah, like the next step for DevOps person after AWS, I would say, is to learn Kubernetes, and it's becoming the de facto standard in our everyday work. So yeah.
Yeah, thanks a lot. We have just 1 minute more, but maybe could you please kindly share before that, or maybe any something extra funny and interesting was happened
Oh
into
yeah,
during the conference or during the using with the
yeah.
client performance, like this
Yeah.
shortly.
I can tell you, my fails. So yeah,
Yeah.
during exam, I was very nervous. The person should be very fresh during the exam, and I have a very bad habit that I use Linux on my daily work, and I try to use always keyshorts, shortcut. And
Uh-huh.
during exam, I need to SSH to another nodes, and I need to look back. And during this time, I was using the shortcut for exiting it. And one time where I was giving the main page of examination and this main console, I managed to kill the main console. So yeah, I went to the panic. I thought I failed the exam. And yeah, I was very lost. But after a few minutes, the console restarted and everything went back. Also, I would mention one thing, which I forgot to say, that it is important to leave the Kubernetes in the running space, in running state. If we leave our Kubernetes cluster in the broke state, the exam is failed, guys. So yeah, keep in mind, don't break Kubernetes cluster.
Yeah, thanks a lot. And for the several seconds, could you please share about the winner? Yes, for the that first question. Yes, it was
Yeah.
about which one, or maybe the other one do you like?
So let it
About the
be.
experts, yes. Or maybe you can decide it later. Yes, and we
Yeah,
will
I think I should decide it later.
later.
Yeah.
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 Okay. Yeah. Thanks a
Okay.
lot. And
Thank you, guys.
let's. Yeah. See you.
Thank you, everybody. Have a nice day. Bye bye.
Yeah.